My wife, Aria, was once again in London, indulging in some shopping. Over the years, she's been spending more and more time away from home. Our marriage has dwindled to almost nothing, yet neither of us is eager to pursue a divorce. My flourishing software company, which struggled for over a decade, has now soared in success. Thanks to the convergence of hardware technology with my software package, the company's value has skyrocketed. 3 major companies have shown interest, and I'm just waiting for the right one to make a move. The current value exceeds 10 million, mostly in stock, which I hold. About 8 years ago, Aria worked for a legal firm in Reading, her paycheck helping us significantly. Her long hours and frequent overnight trips, despite being just a paralegal, didn't raise many concerns for me at the time, as I was absorbed in my software development. Until then, everything was fine between us. We enjoyed a wonderful married life, spending quality time together even when my job was uncertain. However, after about a year at the law firm, our intimacy dwindled and our life together became more platonic. I was unhappy with the situation, but I believed it was just a passing phase. We have 2 sons, both in high school. They pretty much took care of themselves. Brian was gearing up for Penn State, and John was looking forward to joining the Marines. Aria's boss at Burke's Legal was Brandon Garcia. I'd met him and his wife a few times at company functions, and he seemed like an alright guy. Then one day, Aria came home very upset and told me that Brandon had been shot by his wife. She didn't elaborate on any details, but shortly afterward, she quit her job and never worked again. Our marriage didn't improve. Aria became increasingly surly and argumentative. I wish I could say she had redeeming qualities, but I can't. I tried to avoid her as much as possible, but it was challenging, especially since she was pregnant. I hoped the new baby would improve our home situation, but it didn't. Aria named our daughter Sophia. She adored the girl and fussed over her constantly, but our relationship continued to deteriorate. As Sophia grew older, Aria started spending more time away from home. The company was profitable, so we moved into a new house with servants. Aria hired a live-in nanny for Sophia and took full advantage of it. I never questioned where she went or why. All I knew was that there were a lot of expenses. Fortunately, I was making money faster than she could spend it, but I was still upset. I attempted to have a conversation with her to understand what went wrong between us, but she refused. The fact that we slept in separate bedrooms certainly didn't help. I was clueless about my mistakes and thus had no idea how to rectify them. Eventually, I just gave up. Divorce would be costly, likely costing me a couple $1,000,000 and potentially damaging the new company. I was frustrated with myself for letting things deteriorate to this point. Despite having my own legal team, I couldn't see a viable way out. Meanwhile, Sophia was blossoming into a remarkable young lady. I cherished every moment spent with her. Aria often kept us apart, but with her frequent absences, Sophia and I became close without her knowledge. It was our little secret, and Sophia relished it. She was now in 3rd grade and thriving. I attended PTA meetings and teacher conferences, as Aria was usually preoccupied with other matters. Brian and John were both doing well on their own. My marriage was faltering, but my children brought immense joy to my life. Then, one day, luck was on my side. Stella Garcia sat in my office, a surprising sight, given I thought she was serving time for her husband's murder. She seemed to have aged gracefully, her shoulder-length hair a blend of gray, silver, and hints of black. Her makeup was minimal, allowing her natural beauty to shine through, her skin possessing a smoothness that wasn't overly soft. Her natural eyebrows framed her face perfectly, giving her a simultaneously tough and feminine aura. "Stella, this is quite the surprise. You look good," I said, genuinely taken aback. "Thank you, Charles. I wasn't sure if you'd remember me after all this time." 8 years is a long stretch, and I figured I'd be a distant memory by now. "Would you like some coffee?" I offered. "Black would be great," she replied. "Stella, I find myself in a rather awkward situation here. I'm aware of your circumstances, and I certainly don't want to say or do anything to upset you. If I happen to overstep, please don't hesitate to correct me. I've been in jail for the past 8 years, Charles. I've grown quite thick-skinned about the whole ordeal. Don't worry about my feelings. By the way, how's Mrs. Wright? I'd rather not delve into that. Let's just say things could be better, I answered, hesitant. Fair enough. That's actually why I've come to see you. I need to talk to you about Aria. It's not about revenge or spite, but there are some loose ends I feel need tying up. I placed the cup of coffee in front of her and took a seat in the chair next to my desk, rather than behind it. I wanted to hear what she had to say, and I wanted her to feel comfortable doing so. I pressed the intercom button and instructed my secretary not to interrupt us. Charles, did you follow the trial at all? No. Aria mentioned what happened, but I didn't have much interest. I was busy with the business startup, and she wasn't very talkative. I guess she was upset about his death. More than you'd imagine, I guess. It seems you have no clue about what was going on, so this might come as a shock. You said you didn't want to upset me. Well, I feel the same way. I'm going to explain things to you that aren't pleasant. If it gets too difficult, just let me know and I'll stop. Maybe we should have had some scotch instead of coffee. We both chuckled slightly. On the day I shot Brandon, he was planning to leave me and run away with Aria. He stopped by the house just long enough to give me divorce papers. Your wife was waiting in the car. They were going to come see you after they finished with me. I had known about their affair for some time and had documentation and a few pictures. The fact that he was asking for a divorce didn't bother me because I was planning the same thing. Stella, I had no idea. I was living in my own little world at the time. I guess it's my fault in a way that the whole thing happened. I'm sorry that my poor performance as a husband contributed to your marital problems. There's more, Charles. Brandon always dreamed of having a family, but we couldn't have children. He constantly criticized me for it, blaming me entirely. When he handed me the divorce papers, he dropped the bombshell. Aria was pregnant with his child, supposedly giving him the family he craved. As I turned to leave, he continued to hurl insults and degrading names at me. Leaving wasn't enough for him. He needed to make me feel worthless. He just wouldn't stop. Eventually, I couldn't take it anymore. I reached into the buffet drawer and grabbed the revolver. I don't remember pulling the trigger. Are you saying that Sophia, my daughter, is Brandon's? No, Sophia isn't Brandon's daughter, but I'm sure Aria believes she is. Could you explain that? I've had myself checked several times. The doctors never found anything wrong with me. Finally, I tested Brandon's DNA sample, and it turned out to be completely sterile. I never told him. By the way, Sophia is the name of Brandon's mother. I assume that was the name they agreed on when Aria found out she was pregnant. Aria picked out the name, but I had no idea where she had gotten it from. I think you're right, though. She believes that Sophia is Brandon's child. Knowing that explains a lot of things. Would you like some more coffee? No, but I have some more things to discuss. Are you sure you have the time? We're fine. Don't worry about a thing. That's the nice thing about being the boss. When I went to prison, all of the things in the house went into storage. Brandon's briefcase was included. I was going through it last week and found this. Stella handed me the original divorce papers that Aria was going to give to me the day that Brandon got shot. The papers were signed, dated, and notarized. Brandon and Aria worked for a law firm, so the terms of the divorce were very precisely spelled out. Is this still valid? Stella laughed. I have no idea. I'm not a lawyer. Check out paragraph 7. She's granting me full custody of all the children. It'd really get under her skin if she knew I could get Sophia. The boys are out of the picture, but if I got custody of her little angel, she'd lose it. Can I have this so my legal team can review it? It's all yours, Charles. It means nothing to me. I wish you the best with it. Here are a few more items you might find interesting. Stella handed me 2 manila envelopes. The photos my detective took are in the small envelope. They're quite incriminating. I have no use for them, but perhaps they'll be valuable to you. The large envelope contains the investigation results from my PI and some other pertinent documents. You can review them and decide what's important to you. Thanks. I don't really want to see them, but I'll give them to the lawyer along with the papers. We both sat there for a moment, sizing each other up. She was an impressive woman, and I was grateful she came to see me. I should go and let you get back to work. Thanks for meeting with me. I feel better getting these loose ends sorted out. By the way, do you have any job openings for an ex-con? My personal favorite lawyer, Michael Johnson, was like a kid in a candy store when he saw the 8-year-old divorce papers with no expiration date. He couldn't wait to get started. Aria hadn't asked for percentages, just hard figures. She wanted $14,000 from the checking and savings accounts, which was about half of what it was 8 years ago, but almost nothing now. Everything else was similar, except for one thing. She wanted the 1995 Volvo station wagon that she had at the time. I had sold it about 5 years ago. I needed to find that car. Stella Garcia began working in the software testing division of the company. It was an entry-level position, but I thought she would be comfortable with it. Plus, it gave me a chance to see her regularly. I like Stella and hope to get to know her better. Sophia and I kept our DNA tests secret from Aria. It would be a few weeks until the results came back, but Michael needed the time to ensure there were no loopholes in the divorce papers. I was confident the results would show Sophia was mine. With some help from friends at the DMV, I located the Volvo wagon at State College. The frat boy was happy to let me have it for twice what he paid. A week later, I had the new title with Aria's name on it. Michael explained to me that as long as nothing was changed on the original request for divorce, it could go through as written. We didn't find anything serious enough to make us want to change it. Aria's signature was still legal after 8 years, and I signed in my place while Michael's notary put the seal on it. Now all we had to do was wait. Time crawled by. My relationship with my wife remained stagnant, but my bond with my daughter and Stella Garcia blossomed each day. It took about a month, but I finally persuaded Stella to join me for lunch on a day off. It was pleasant, with no expectations attached. I assured her that I wouldn't give any indication to our colleagues that I harbored any romantic interest in her. She responded by saying that her relationship with me mattered more to her than her job. I felt hopeful that things would improve, but I wasn't going to force anything. In the following weeks, I made several attempts to discuss our marriage with Aria. Each time, she shut down any conversation and refused to engage. I hadn't told her that her divorce petition had been processed and would soon be finalized. One ordinary day in the middle of the week, Aria stormed into my office. "What the hell is this?" she demanded, throwing some official-looking papers on my desk. "I'm not entirely sure, but I believe your divorce request from 8 years ago has just been finalized," I replied calmly. "You son of a bitch, you can't do that. Everything has changed since then, and if you think I'm going to let you get away with this crap, you're crazy." "What's changed, darling? Just because your lover passed away doesn't mean we can't proceed with the divorce. I've agreed to all your terms, so you have no grounds to protest. I suggest you get a lawyer if you want to contest the divorce. In the meantime, please remove all your belongings from my house, which, mind you, you gave to me. I'll gladly leave your house, and I'll have this lossy divorce notice thrown out. You'll pay, and you'll pay big. Sophia and I will be gone this afternoon, and I'll send someone for my stuff tomorrow. Sorry, dear, but if you read paragraph 7, you'll notice that you gave full custody of Sophia to me. Until you resolve it, she's mine. If you try to take Sophia without my permission, I'll have you arrested, I promise." By this time, Aria was furious. She wasn't just speaking. She was practically screaming. Her neck muscles were tense, and the veins in her forehead were bulging. Her lips quivered with every word. For the next minute, I couldn't even hear what she was saying. I just stood there, stunned by her outburst. Finally, she grabbed the papers and stormed out. The peace and quiet afterward was wonderful. I sat back, fully relaxed and relieved, as my secretary brought me a cup of coffee. She didn't say anything, just smiled. I spent the rest of the afternoon canceling cell phones, credit cards, bank accounts, and insurance policies. I called Stella, and she agreed to have supper with Sophia and me that night. I needed a friendly shoulder to lean on. Sophia and Stella spent most of the night talking to each other. Things didn't turn out as I had planned. A few days later, Michael called me. Aria had hired legal representation, and a meeting was scheduled to resolve the issues with the divorce. A family judge would oversee the proceedings as an arbitrator. Michael mentioned that Aria's lawyer didn't seem confident about invalidating the divorce decree, but was keen on persuading me to give up custody of Sophia as an additional condition. I agreed to compromise, but stood firm on not conceding. The meeting began slowly, mainly focusing on reviewing Aria's demands outlined in the divorce request. Michael handed over checks for the agreed amounts, and we quietly endured the formal protests about the fairness of the settlements. Michael remained silent throughout. Aria seemed taken aback when I passed the car keys and title for the Volvo across the table. Finally, the topic of custody arose. Aria asked the judge for permission to make a statement, which was granted. For the past 8 years, I've endured a loveless marriage for the sake of my daughter. I loved Brandon Garcia wholeheartedly and was proud to give him the child his wife couldn't. Sophia is Brandon Garcia's daughter, not Charles Wright's. Mr. Wright has no rights to Sophia, and I won't accept my daughter being raised by a stranger. I'm seeking sole custody of Sophia Wright based on this. The judge, who had been silent throughout the entire proceeding, finally spoke up. Mrs. Wright, are you alleging that Sophia Wright is the product of an extramarital affair between you and Brandon Garcia, while you were married to Charles Wright? Yes, Your Honor. It sounds somewhat demeaning the way you phrase it, but Brandon Garcia and I were lovers and soulmates. We never saw our relationship as something as sordid as adultery. We were planning or starting our own life together when his tragedy occurred. Sophia is the living proof of our love, and I don't want Mr. Wright having any contact with her. Normally, your admission in this matter would diminish your chances of custody due to the infidelity. However, if what you say is true, we may need to reconsider, the judge remarked, turning towards Michael. Do you have anything to add? Michael and I exchanged glances. Are you sure about this, Charles? Yes, let's do it. My affable lawyer slid a document across the table to Aria's lawyer. This is a report dated approximately 6 weeks prior to the conception of Sophia Wright. As you can see, the report indicates that Brandon Garcia had a sperm count of 0. Mr. Garcia was completely sterile, and there's no way he could have fathered a child. That's why Stella Garcia, who is fertile, was never able to conceive. Aria's complexion drained, her eyes widening in disbelief. It was reminiscent of her previous agitation in my office. That's not true. This report is fabricated. You're just trying to take Brandon's child from me, she exclaimed, her voice trembling with emotion. Her lawyer leaned in, murmuring soothing words, attempting to calm her down. Eventually, she seemed to ease a bit. Michael slid 3 more documents across the table. The first is a DNA analysis of Sophia Wright. The second is of Charles Wright. And the third is a comparison, proving Charles Wright is indeed Sophia Wright's father. Any questions? By now, Aria was in tears, her anger replaced by sheer despair. She sobbed uncontrollably as her lawyer requested a brief recess. After the break, Aria's lawyer conceded custody but sought a visitation agreement. I agreed to Aria having Sophia every other weekend and 2 holidays per year of her choice. Aria opted for Christmas and her birthday. She remained quiet for the rest of the session. I returned to work without a word, leaving Michael to finalize the paperwork. I couldn't believe my luck in getting away so easily. If Aria had been a better partner these past few years, I would have gladly shared my wealth with her. I never held back emotionally or materially. I was ready to do anything for her, yet somehow I fell short of her expectations. I couldn't figure out what Brandon Garcia had that I didn't, or what he did for her that I couldn't. The pictures Stella left behind didn't reveal anything special about him physically. I gave copies of the pictures and the investigation to Aria, including 2 reports of Brandon's motel meetings with other women while he was still seeing her. I hope she found some satisfaction in reading those. Every attempt I made to get an explanation from Aria was met with resistance. The divorce left me feeling like a failure, but I found some solace with Sophia and Stella. Aria moved in with Brandon's mother, Sophia. Apparently, they had become friends over the years. Unfortunately, the arrangement didn't work out well for Aria. To support herself, she started selling off the jewelry and designer clothes I had bought her. It took her a while to realize that her lover's mother was doing the same thing. After 6 months, Aria moved out and went to live with her sister in Norristown. Initially, Aria used to pick up Sophia every weekend, but gradually she started making excuses for not being able to come. The excuses became more frequent and less convincing until she eventually stopped coming altogether. Sophia didn't mind Aria canceling because Stella and I made sure to compensate for her absence. We spent more time together and began to feel like a family. Eventually, Stella moved in, and we got married just before Christmas. During the holidays, Aria was on a singles cruise in the Caribbean and couldn't pick up Sophia as scheduled. Surprisingly, everyone was relieved. 2 weeks later, I filed to have the custody addendum thrown out, and it was approved. Finally, my company was bought, and we were now financially stable. Stella was overjoyed because she was pregnant for the first time in her life. Though we might be on Social Security by the time the baby finishes high school, it will all be worth it. Life is finally good. Thank you for watching this video to the end. If you liked it, please like it and subscribe to the channel. See you soon.